Hey, Doc Steve here, and I've been getting a certain question in the ER off and on throughout the pandemic, and it's come up more recently, and I wanted to share my answer to it with you. Okay, and the question is this: isn't COVID-19 just a cold? Or sometimes it's phrased as, isn't COVID-19 just a little flu? And here's my answer: yes, COVID-19 is just a cold in about 30% of people. I think this might be part of the reason why some people actually think it's just a cold, because maybe they've known a couple people who got it and it was only a cold for them. But the other reason is that there's a lot of online personalities, media people, celebrities who have come out and said it's just a cold or a little flu. And the most recent example of this is there was a TikTok video last month in December 2021 that racked up over 1 million views before I even saw it, where there's a woman who says, I want to show you something cool. And she opens up the 1989 Encyclopedia of Medicine and turns to the page that has the table with all the families of viruses and what kind of illnesses they cause. And she pointed to the coronavirus and moved it over and says colds. And the implication is coronavirus just gives you a cold. So that's a good example, but in my experience, it actually is just a cold in about 30%. And then in about 30% of people, it's a flu or a bad flu or a really bad flu. A little clarification here, because a lot of people think colds and flus are the same. Colds are
nasal congestion, little runny nose, little sore throat, little cough. Flus are all that plus the cough can be really bad. Plus you got fever and shaking chills. Plus you got a throbbing headache. Plus you feel like a truck hit you 3 or 4 times. Plus you're nauseous. Plus you're vomiting. Plus you're maybe vomiting a lot. Plus you have diarrhea maybe. Plus you're short of breath.
So that's flu. A little bit of confusion there. And then for about 30%, COVID-19 is a life-ending, life-threatening, or life-changing illness. And what I mean by that is life-ending. Somewhere under 1% die from it. Somewhere between 10 and 20%, depending on where you are in the pandemic, get really sick enough to be admitted, and a bunch of those go to the ICU. And then what I mean by life-changing, there's a certain proportion of patients that actually have lasting symptoms. That's the long COVID, and it might be mild symptoms, it might be pretty severe symptoms. Doesn't have to be just those folks who are admitted to the hospital. We don't know much about long COVID yet. We don't even know how long COVID is, because the virus has only been around for a couple of years. But that's what I mean by folks having life-changing illness from COVID. Now, I hope everyone noticed what the problem with the TikTok video was, but in case you didn't, I'm going to tell you what it was. Anyone who's relying for their medical information on a textbook from 1989, well, I just have to say, in terms of medical science, that's really from the time the dinosaurs ruled the earth. As I've said before, I actually trained back then, and I've said in my videos that I trained in the late Jurassic period. If that person had taken any textbook after 2014 and gone to the same page that shows the families of viruses, they would have seen coronavirus, colds, and then severe respiratory disease, because the 2 worst respiratory viruses we've had in this country in the last 100 years were both coronaviruses. The first SARS in 2003, and then MERS in 2011 and 12. And if she'd gotten a textbook from 2021, there would have been a third virus there, SARS-CoV-2. So there's a spectrum of illness with coronavirus, and it can be a cold for some, but it can also be really severe for others. Now, to you folks who think you're going to be in that lowest category because you're young and without medical problems, I just want to point out something, okay? It doesn't work that way all the time. I have one good friend who's in her 80s with bad lung disease, and she just got a few sniffles. I have multiple friends in their 20s and 30s who got really sick from this, including people I work with, some of whom are extremely healthy, fitness fanatics even, and they got really sick. I know of somebody in their early 20s recently admitted to the hospital. I don't know if they're going to succumb, but they're already in that life-threatening category. And this is because it's not just age and medical factors that make you likely to get really sick from this. There's a lot of other factors, so there's no guarantee. So some of you folks might have noticed that 30% plus 30% plus 30% doesn't equal 100%. And there's a good reason for that. And it's because, well, it's actually, to be honest, I'm not very good at math. I mean, fractions and percentages, they kind of mystify me. And it's like I've said to math teachers through the years, close enough should be good enough. Why are you so obsessed with getting exactly the right answer? Like in this case, 30%, that's kind of like a third, right? Aren't they kind of like the same, I think, right? This is my closing advice. If you want to be in that bottom third, or 30%, whatever you want to call it, of people who only get cold symptoms, then get your vaccine, get your booster, follow public health advice. But if you want to maximize your chances of getting into that life-ending, life-threatening, life-changing category, then don't do those things. Hey, a little disclaimer here. I spent a lot of time trying to figure out how many people to put into each one of these categories. And as you see, I came up with about a third each. But everything I looked at was pre-Omicron. It's almost certain that Omicron has dropped this down, so there's more people in that lower category than the upper. Nobody really knows how much, but what I'm trying to say is this is an approximation. If you think it's a little bit different from what I said, well, just give me a break, because as in most things in life, but not math, close enough is good enough, right? If you like this video, hey, take a look at my other videos on COVID misinformation on my YouTube channel. It's at Doc Steve, all one word, on YouTube. Until next time, though, thanks for watching. See you later. Bye.